Hi there, my name is James Levesque, and this is Life After Losses. Now, this is a place where I share my thoughts as a double widower and what I feel it means to build a meaningful life after loss, or in my case, losses. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I wrote about a conversation I had with a younger friend. After that entry was published, though, he sent me a simple message. Hey, I really like what you wrote. Let's grab a meal and talk about life. Now, we haven't had a chance to have that meal yet, but his invitation made me realize something I hadn't really considered before. Yeah, I've been thinking about everything I'm learning from the younger people entering my life, and I hadn't really thought nearly as much about what I might be giving back. It got me wondering whether purpose is always something we have to go looking for, or whether sometimes it finds us through out of the perspective that we've accumulated simply by living. Now, when you're done, I'd love to know what your thoughts are, what your life has taught you that might actually be useful to someone else. So for now, let's go ahead and dive into entry 296, Finding Purpose Again. A few weeks ago, as I wrote about a conversation I had had with a younger friend, he's a musician, and where I found myself telling him something that I've had to learn in my own life, that perfection can become the enemy of progress, and that waiting until you're completely certain you're ready is sometimes just another way of not starting. Now, that conversation became entry 294, and after it was published, he sent me the message. Well, just a few words. I really like what you wrote. He said, let's grab a meal and talk about life. Now, we haven't had that meal yet, but I've thought about that message quite a bit since it arrived. There was something in those few words I hadn't really considered when we'd had the original conversation. I'd been thinking about what I could learn from spending time with people younger than I am, their perspective, their experiences, the music and ideas and ways of looking at the world they introduced me to that might not otherwise cross my path. And I've always liked that kind of exchange. What I hadn't really considered was what might be traveling in the other direction. I'm not sure mentor is the right word for what's happening between us. It feels a little too formal, a little too deliberate. I'm certainly not sitting across from him with a notebook and a lesson plan. We're just talking. And sometimes, but there's, in those conversations, the experiences I've accumulated over nearly 60 years have started becoming useful to someone else. And it's not about grief and recovery. And that's been interesting to sit with. I've spent a lot of time over the years thinking about what loss takes from us. That's understandable. Loss changes relationships, plans, identities. Sometimes it takes away a future we'd already begun imagining. And when that happens, questions about purpose can genuinely get complicated. What gets me out of bed now? Who needs me? What am I working toward? What matters enough to keep showing up for? Those questions aren't unique to grief after death either. They show up after a divorce, a retirement, a career change, an empty nest, an illness, the end of a friendship, any experience that leaves us looking at a life that no longer works quite the way it used to. Now, for most of my life, I think I understood purpose as something that we were supposed to go find, almost like it was out there somewhere waiting. And maybe if we chose the right career, met the right person, created something important, or found some larger mission, we'd eventually be able to point to it and say, right there, that's it. That's my purpose. But I'm not sure I believe that anymore. Maybe purpose isn't always one big thing. Maybe sometimes it's simply discovering that the life that we've already lived has given us something worth bringing into the life we're living now. And that thought has been following me since my friend's message arrived. My losses are part of what I bring to those conversations. So the relationships I've had, the careers I've pursued, the mistakes I've made, the risks I've taken, the people I've loved, the things I've gotten right, and plenty of things I haven't. None of those experiences exist separately anymore. They're all bundled together in something called perspective. And perspective is a strange thing, because you rarely notice yourself acquiring it. There was no morning I woke up and thought, excellent, I have perspective now. Now, mostly I just kept living. I made decisions. Some worked, some didn't. I loved people. I lost people. I changed careers. I raised children. I wrote books. I tried things that scared me and abandoned other things that stopped fitting. I learned lessons I probably could have learned more easily if I'd listened to the first time around. And eventually all of that became the person sitting across from the table from someone younger, saying, perfection might be getting in your way. And apparently, that was useful. Now, there's something unexpectedly meaningful about that, especially because I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't trying to become his mentor. I wasn't trying to turn a friendship into something larger mission. I was just showing up as myself. And maybe that's one of the ways purpose finds its way back after loss. Not through a grand revelation about what we're supposed to do with the rest of our lives, but through smaller moments when we realize that who we've become has value beyond ourselves. Someone asks our opinion. Someone wants to hear the story. Someone calls because we've been through something they're facing right now. Someone says, let's grab a meal and talk about life. And suddenly the things that we've lived through aren't only behind us, they're contributing to something happening now. And I want to be clear about one thing though. I would never suggest that loss happens so that we can learn a lesson or become useful to somebody else. Yeah, I've experienced too much loss to wrap it into that kind of explanation. I would still rather have the people I've lost. But I can't change what happened. What I can do is decide what happens to everything I've learned while continuing to live afterward. And maybe some of it becomes a book. Maybe some becomes a conversation over dinner. Maybe it helps our children or changes the way we show up for a friend, or simply makes us better at sitting beside someone who doesn't need answers nearly as much as they need someone who understands the question. Purpose doesn't have to be a calling. It doesn't have to become a career or cause or something that we can summarize in a single sentence. Sometimes it's recognizing that our lives have given us something worth sharing. I'm still curious about what I'll learn from the younger people entering my life, but I'm beginning to understand what the exchange goes both ways. Apparently I have something that bring to the table as well. And sometime soon, quite literally, I will. Now it's your turn. What has your life taught you that might actually be useful to someone else? And what's one way you could start sharing it? I'd really love to hear your answers. Go ahead and drop a comment, and thanks for watching.